Hello, my name is Mehek Shah, and today I'll be presenting my interdisciplinary honors thesis titled The Human Hands Behind Artificial Intelligence. Artificial intelligence is shaping our world. From healthcare to finance to entertainment, it's fueling innovation and becoming indispensable. But behind these innovations in generative AI lies a hidden workforce, data workers who make AI function. Now, why did I spend a year researching this? And why does this matter? Because this labor, essential to generative AI success, is often exploitative, invisible, and ethically questionable. We celebrate AI's power, but we rarely ask at what human cost? This thesis brings together technology, labor, ethics, and policy, and I hope to shed light on the real human beings behind the algorithms we rely on. So, I will start off with a background of AI data work and labor practices, and then move on to the key challenges and share what data workers are doing to advocate for change. I will then highlight gaps in accountability and end with best practices and recommendations for a more ethical AI future. Now, before we dive into the ethical issues, we need to understand what AI data work actually is and who's doing it. So, generative AI refers to systems that can create new content, text, images, audio, code based on patterns and data. Now, examples include an example includes a large language model like GBT. And with the increasing use of large language models, there is a demand for higher quality, structured, and curated data. Researchers actually note that performance boost earned from each round of costly and resource intensive enlargement has in fact substantially decreased. So, as a result, the improvement of model outputs necessitates a substantial amount of human effort, including those who must classify, annotate, and assess the data inputs and outputs of training systems. The human labor needed to support these systems, which is frequently contracted out to underpaid and marginalized workers, is known as AI data work. Without them modifying problematic responses, organizing training data, and influencing models' prompt interpretations, LLMs would not be able to generate clear or useful answers that would even make them worth using. Most people imagine AI as fully automated, but the reality is that behind every smart system, like a chatbot, is a team of human workers doing repetitive, low paid tasks that machines can't handle yet. This invisible labor is known as ghost work, a term coined by Mary Gray and Siddharth Suri. It refers to the hidden human effort that fuels digital platforms like labeling images, transcribing audio, moderating content, and categorizing text. These workers, who are often globally dispersed, work independently via various platforms. And what makes a ghost work is that it's deliberately designed to be hidden. When you use an app that seems instant or automated, chances are that there's a person working behind the scenes to make that system function. But the system gives no indication or hint that a person was involved. Now, these low wage workers are the backbone of much of the automation that is now praised in AI. And the entire AI pipeline is doused in exploitative practices of unappreciation and insufficiently compensated pay grades. These workers are maintained in unstable positions and find it difficult to demand improved working conditions or to protest this unethical behavior without the backing of unionization because they fear losing their employment, which many of them cannot afford to do. Employers strategically hire members of neglected and impoverished areas, including refugees, prisoners, and others with limited employment opportunities. And they frequently do this by hiring contractors from outside companies rather than full time staff. Now, while hiring from disadvantaged groups like these might seem beneficial, Doing so in a predatory way without any safeguards raises serious ethical concerns. Again, the exploitation of this labor for developing AI extends through the entire pipeline, from the mining sector, where resources are extracted and transported to create the hardware and infrastructure for these AI systems, all the way to the repetitive, laborious identification and labeling of suspicious and harmful data. It is concerning and imperative to understand the experiences of the workers who really are the brains and body of the AI system, but continue to remain largely invisible while the corporations reap all the benefits. Places this labeling work may take place are in Venezuela, Bulgaria, India, Kenya, Philippines, or Mexico. And this contradiction is seen when these workers, who most often do not speak English, are threatened with terminations and bans if they don't show an understanding of the rules. However, the same adherence to the rules isn't seen from the company side when it comes to, again, a fair wage and better working conditions. Here are some examples of that. The Philippines houses more than 10,000 victims who labor for various big name firms like Meta, Microsoft, and OpenAI through a platform called Remotasks, which is owned by Scale AI, a startup worth $7 billion. Now, while $6 to $10 a day is the local minimum wage in the Philippines, depending on which region you're in, very few earn that much, as was found through an internal messaging platform for remote tasks. In addition to that, notices of delayed, missed, or canceled payments were seen occurring multiple times a month in one project. And while most didn't, some, with luck in their favor, did receive an explanation from their supervisors as to why their payments were getting canceled, although it was demeaning their hard work to be late and inaccurate. Furthermore, questions to the same were seen as defiance and met with the ultimate punishment, their accounts being deactivated. Jackie, a 26-year-old worker in the Philippines, mentions how a 3-day project worth $50 was pitted down to a mere $12. For Charisse, a 23-year-old, spending 4 hours on a task meant only earning 30 cents as opposed to her rightful $2. Sama, a San Francisco-based firm that employs workers in Kenya, Uganda, and India to also work on projects for big name giants, really prides itself as an ethical AI company that helped to lift more than 50,000 people out of poverty. Hypocritically, however, the workers Sama enlisted for the disturbing work on behalf of OpenAI were taking home only between around $1.32 and $2 per hour, based on seniority and performance. These tasks, which included reviewing content containing things like child sexual abuse, murder, suicide, torture, self-harm, and incest, were deemed fit to be at under $2 per hour, while the industry itself was securing billions. Sama actually had to cancel all of its work for OpenAI in February of 2022, 8 months prior to the actual end of the contract date, as a result of the numerous traumatic experiences the workers faced routinely. One of those workers, responsible for reading and labeling text for OpenAI, mentioned an instance of reading a graphic description of inappropriate sexual encounters. This was torture, they said. You will read a number of statements like that throughout the week, and by Friday, you are disturbed. These descriptions could range from 100 to well over 1,000 words per passage, and a single 9-hour shift could consist of 150 to 200 passages. For more workers who also stated being severely mentally scarred were provided sessions with wellness counselors. However, they soon noticed the facade as the firm only cared about an increase in productivity. Furthermore, all one-to-one basis requests were canceled and only group sessions were partially offered. These occurrences exposed inconsistencies in SAMA's ethical claims and showed the true face of the company, a profit-driven, immoral firm. Another troubling practice that data workers must face is instructions to pretend that they are an automated system so as to conceal the extent of human involvement. In a startup created by Dennis Mortison called X.AI, the digital personal assistant Amy, who was able to magically schedule meetings, was in fact a group of contract workers putting in long shifts to enable it. I left feeling totally numb and absent of any sort of emotion, one employee stated. To sustain the illusion of a functioning 24/7 system, workers were not allowed to leave at the end of their 14-hour shifts until they had annotated all of the cues of their emails. All of this paints a picture of a labor model built on exploitation, one where workers are simultaneously essential and expendable. And the worst part, most people using these AI systems have no idea that there are real people behind the scenes making them work. This raises major ethical questions. Should profit maximization be prioritized over the welfare of people? Or is it possible to strike a balance between ethical work standards and technological development? In order to safeguard data workers and promote continuous innovation, this thesis contends that the development of AI must include responsible and ethical labor practices to protect data workers and support sustainable innovation. This project aims to shed light on the hidden workforce underlying artificial intelligence by analyzing the relationship between technology, labor, and ethics. It also suggests practical ways to promote accountability and equity and attempts to contribute to a more sustainable and fair AI environment by thoroughly examining the condition of data work today, its ethical ramifications, and possible reform strategies. One of the most obvious reasons why companies don't enable ethical initiatives is due to the cost and efficiency they receive. The possibility of saving money and time is the main driver for companies to use freelance data workers. And the data annotation workflow may be streamlined by outsourcing, which enables these AI developers to concentrate on their primary jobs and give the opportunity for various internal resources to free up. Additionally, companies rely on the workers for scalability and speed. Because gig platforms provide almost instantaneous work, companies tend to shy away from responsible practices as it really lacks this flexibility and has lengthier return rates. Along with these corporate incentives, there are a lot of structural and regulatory barriers surrounding the use of data workers. Benefits like paid time off or health and worker insurance won't be provided because these online platforms aren't legally employers of gig workers. Additionally, because AI developers outsource this data annotation worldwide, workers in various nations are governed by widely disparate labor regulations, which can result in inconsistencies in protection. Now, data workers are fighting. Platforms like Turkopticon allow Amazon Mechanical Turk employees to critique employers on this platform, assisting each other in avoiding exploitative employment. In Kenya, former SAMA workers sued Meta for union busting. Their case helped to establish Africa's first content moderators union. In 2023, over 150 workers from OpenAI, TikTok, and Meta gathered in Nairobi to demand better wages, mental health protections, and recognition of their rights. This isn't just a resistance, it's the beginning of a movement. Organizations like United Tech and Allied Workers in the UK and the Alphabet Workers Union in the US are pushing for workplace fairness, privacy rights, and equitable pay. Beyond unionization, research has sparked many initiatives for building self-empowerment. For instance, the Data Workers Inquiry is devoted to empowering data workers by recording their experiences and lobbying for improved working conditions. Similarly, the AI Now Institute is an AI policy research organization that really focuses on tackling tech power concentration, promoting public accountability, and opposing corporate monitoring. Since its inception, AI Now Institute has influenced critical conversations on the labor systems that underlie AI and its societal repercussions. Its leadership was actually asked to assist the Federal Trade Commission on AI policy in 2021, demonstrating its significance in U.S. regulatory debates. Many major tech companies, Meta, Amazon Mechanical Turk, and OpenAI, harbor corporate policies and codes of conduct that are committed to ethical labor standards. So, how and why are they able to shy away from these promises? As it seems, the very nature of outsourcing via a third party company is often these companies' way of sidestepping from responsibility. This discrepancy is exactly what is bridging the gap between corporate policies and real world labor conditions. They set their ethical guidelines on paper and allow the external company to take responsibility for any wrongdoings. Accountability must become enforceable. Collaboration across all corporations, non governmental organizations, and the government is needed to achieve overall and systematic change. And an important step towards this collaboration is aligning their behavior with internationally recognized principles and policy. Organizations like the United Nations Global Compact promote principles like collective bargaining rights and the elimination of forced labor. Or Ethisphere provides a clear model for top codes of conduct, and taking steps to use and implement resources like this is vital to closing the gaps that permit unethical labor practices in outsourced workforces. So, what can we do? For one, we can mandate third party audits for companies claiming to follow these ethical codes. We can also incentivize fair labor through something like tax breaks or public recognition. We can also encourage participation in programs like UNGC and Ethisphere with meaningful consequences for noncompliance. We can also continue to advocate for change and bringing awareness to the injustice in order to hold these corporations accountable. These are not just idealistic dreams. They are achievable with the right political and institutional will. The development of AI must include responsible and ethical labor practices to protect data workers and support sustainable innovation. The rapid advancement and expansion of artificial intelligence have continued to drive change and transform industries. But it has also undeniably created a multitude of ethical issues, particularly in the relation to the treatment of outsourced labor. This thesis has examined the differences between the optimization surrounding technological advancement and the actual uncomfortable realities faced by data annotators, content moderators, and gig workers. Despite their public commitments to corporate responsibility, global corporations keep exploiting these unregulated markets by outsourcing to third party platforms. Data workers have persisted in promoting their rights via legal advocacy, unionization, and worker run platforms. But for meaningful change to occur, businesses must adopt widely recognized ethical frameworks and uphold robust, transparent standards that are upheld by impartial monitoring bodies. Unless the gap between labor practices is closed, these technologies will not be able to sustain their long term progress. If artificial intelligence is to play a major role in shaping the future, we as a society must ensure that all workers, regardless of their place in the global supply chain, have a fair, sustainable, and equitable future of work. Thank you.